let's now talk about the reduce method, which is one of the array transforming method from one of the three: map, filter and reduce in this lecture. Okay, so let's get into it. So as we have learned already so far, like reduce method boils down an array into one single number, right? So in this lecture, this is what we are going to see. So for this, let's again take the existing array which we were using, okay? And then let's create a variable sum, okay? Here we will be storing the sum of all these numbers, okay? And how we can achieve that? We can achieve that with the help of reduce method, okay? It will be reduce, yeah. Now this reduce method also accepts a callback function. So let me pass the callback function quickly. But this will be a little bit different than the callback functions which we have passed in the map and the filter methods, right? They accepts the uh, they pass basically the current element, current index and the array in the parameters, right? But this is not the case with the reduce method, because this passes something called accumulator. We will write it as ACC, and then in the second parameter it will pass the current element, okay? So accumulator is the one which accumulates all the values in every iteration, okay? So this is the one which is responsible for the snowball effect, which uh, which we have learned already in the one of the previous lectures when we were discussing about the map, filter, reduce. So it will contain some initial value, and with that initial value on every iteration, if we want to sum up, let's say we want to sum the current element into it, then it will sum up that current element with the accumulator's current value, and at the end we will get some final result, okay? If it sounds confusing, then let me show you what I mean by that. So now let's say I want to take a sum of all these numbers. In this current, we will get all these numbers one by one as a current element. So let's log it, okay? So let's log the accumulator now. Accumulator, and then let's pass the current element, okay? Now as you can see, accumulator we are getting as 1 and the current element we are getting as 1, and after that we are getting undefined because we are not returning anything here. So if I return accumulator plus current element, then let's see what we will get, okay? So now as you can clearly start seeing, in accumulator we have 1 and current element we have 1, okay? Because this is our current element. So now the initial value of accumulator is 1, okay? Now on the second iteration we got 6 here, and the current element was 6 because the current element was 5, which got summed up with the, okay, sorry, instead of this, I think you already saw it coming. Instead of this we have to pass the current element, okay, yeah. So now in accumulator we got 1 and the current element is 5, okay? So in the next iteration we got accumulator as 6. That means that 5 got added with the 1, okay? Now in the second iteration we got 3 here, which is this, and then this 3 got summed up to the accumulator. As you can already start seeing, it is it is growing slowly, okay, every time on every iteration, okay? So now this 6 got summed up with the 3 and we got 9 in the next iteration, okay? Now the current element is 2. So now this 9 will get summed up with this 2, and then we are getting the 11 here, okay, in the next iteration. And then we have this 4 at the as a last element. Since we haven't added a console log after this return, because it will still not work. For that, what we have to do is let logic equals to accumulator this, and then let's see. Yeah, now you can see perfectly what is going on, and on every iteration, right? This is getting added with this and we are getting 6, then 6 is getting added with this and then we are getting 9. Let's add a string quickly like this, okay? Then these two are getting added, and then we are getting 11 as an accumulator for the next iteration. So now there is a little thing to understand what is going on right now. So we have an accumulator which is accepting, or which is summing up the current iteration's elements value in it, right? So let's say initially we are getting accumulator as 0, then 1 is getting added to that 0, and then we got 1. 0 plus 1 is 1, right? Then 1 got returned to the next iteration, okay? It returned to the next iteration. Now here we have 1 as an accumulator, we don't have 0, okay? So in the second iteration we got 5, where we already have 1, and these two got summed up because of this logic, and we returned the accumulator as 6 to the next iteration. That means in this iteration we will get accumulator as 6, which is here, as you can see, okay? So this way accumulator sums up the numbers of every iteration, and it passes that summed up number to the next iteration, okay? And this is how it creates the snowball effects. It started with 0 and then it summed up slowly every element into it, and then at the end we are getting 15 here. So if you can see in logic, in this sum, if we log it out, then we will get this as a final result. Okay, so now in the sum we started getting this 15 as a final result, right? Which is because of in accumulator it is accumulating the current elements value plus the previous returned value, right? So this is basically this 5 plus 1, which is returning as 6 here, okay? And then this 6 is getting returned to the next iteration, where we have accumulator as 6, and then in the next iteration 3 is getting added into it, okay? So yeah, this is what we have in the reduce. In the reduce there is one more thing, like this callback function is the first parameter which we pass in the reduce method. In the second parameter we pass something called initial value, okay? So as you can see, VS Code already started suggesting us, like, it is totally optional. If you don't pass anything, then it will consider it as 1 only or 0 only. So let's pass 0 here, and then you will start seeing that accumulator's initial value is 0. If you don't pass anything, then its initial value is 1, which makes sense, right? Because in case if we don't want to add it, we want to multiply it with something, then, and if we pass 0, and if it by default sets 0, then obviously this logic is going to fail, right? Because 0 multiplies to any number turns into 0, right? So that is why we'll start getting 0 for every iteration. So by default it sets the value as 1, okay, like this. So if we return 1 here, if we pass 1 here in the second parameter, then we'll get the proper evaluated number, right? So now let's move it back to summing up the numbers, and then let's pass the initial value as 0. And it's not mandatory like we have to pass 0 every time. Let's say you want to add something after 1000, right? Let's pass 1000. So you will get something called something like 1015. So earlier it was giving us total sum is 15. Now we have added that 15 after this 1000. So it is 1015 now. Okay. So this way you can set the initial value which you want to use to add the rest of, or add the logic of the rest of the elements. Okay. So this is how the reduce method works. Now for the sake of completeness, let's write it in the for of loop. Okay, quickly. Let element of array, and then again we have to create a new element here. Let's say some array. Okay, and let's set it to 0. Now what we have to do is we simply have to write some logic like some array plus element, right? Now if you log this sum array, we will get something like this. Okay, so we started getting 15 here back. Got it? And here we are getting 25 because we have passed 10 as an initial value. If you pass 10 here also, then we will get the same result. So this is how it works in the for of loop, and this is how it looks in the reduce method, right? And we can obviously make it cleaner. Like we can remove this logic part, we can remove this variable which we have created, we can remove this console log, or let's keep it here. Okay, let's keep it here somewhere. Yeah, so now let's remove this, or just wait a second, let me take it as a reference, let me keep it as a reference for you guys so that it won't make a mess later. Okay, so I'll comment it out quickly. Now we can peacefully remove this console log, and then we can remove everything which we have used like so. Okay, now we can remove these curly braces as well, and then we can make it a single liner code like this. As you can see, it is way more cleaner and it is giving us the expected result. Okay, and I wanted to tell you one more thing quickly guys, which I forgot to tell you. Like along with this accumulator and the current element, we also get something called current index, and then the complete array, right? As VS Code was already suggesting it, but I think I somehow missed it. So yeah, this also, these two elements also we get, these two parameters also we get in the reduce methods. So all is changed in the reduce method callback is this accumulator and current. So in the filter and map we get like current element as a first parameter, but here we get the accumulator and the current element. And by now you already know like why we get it this way in the reduce method. Okay, so this is all about the reduce method, and you can use it according to your requirements in your use cases. Okay, so this is it for this lecture guys. See you in the next one.